All right, so hello and welcome to Maintaining and Preparing Garden Tools for Spring, presented by the Jackson County Library Services and the Jackson County Master Gardeners. My name is Spencer. I'm an adult services librarian here in Medford. I want to remind everyone to keep your microphone muted to avoid distractions for our presenter during the presentation. It's one of our shorter ones today, so we're going to hold questions for the end, and then you're welcome to either use the chat function or unmute yourself, and we can have a discussion after the presentation. Um, and then before we get started, I do want to share our land acknowledgement from the library. That is, Jackson County Library Services acknowledges that its libraries are located within the traditional lands of the Cow Creek Band Umpqua Tribe of Indians and the Modoc Nation, as well as the Shasta, Takelma, and Lotgawa people, whose descendants are now identified as members of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We take this moment to recognize the Indigenous people whose traditional lands are where residents of Jackson County live today. JCLS is committed to fostering understanding, deep respect, and honor for Indigenous people, and we encourage you to learn about the land you reside on. For more information, go to jcls.org/land. With that, the last thing I have to say is that the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Jackson County Library Services. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jory now, and I'm going to turn off my camera, but I am here if we run into questions.
Hello, all. I probably know some of you, or I saw Colette, so I know her. My name's Jory Kaplan. I'm a retired facial surgeon, and I undertook the Master Gardener program in 2023, and since then have been doing mentoring of the practicum, where we end up at the spring garden fair with lots of plants, and it's all been very lovely journey. What we're going to talk about today is the care and the sharpening and cleaning tools. This is a very basic talk. We could, if there are questions, go to other things that I'm not covering in the actual formal presentation. But here we go. So when we're talking about cleaning tools and sharpening tools, the reason to do this is because it's enhancing the lifespan of the tool, and it also makes the tools a lot more easy to use and actually safer. So those are all real good reasons to be sure that your tools are well maintained. When you do this sort of stuff, you want to have on eyewear, perhaps a mask, and some kind of protective gloves, either gardening gloves or hardier gloves, depending upon what you're doing. Basically, we're going to talk about two different kinds of garden tools. Those tools that you use on plants but don't actually stick down into the soil, and those that are meant for use in soil itself. So let's start with the tools that we use up in above the ground, and for these we'd be talking about the tools that you can see here. We're talking about shears, loppers of various types, and pruners of various types. Basically, what these have in common is that they're either anvil type, which means that the blade comes down onto a fixed non-blade, which hopefully you can see there, or they are bypass type. And with the bypass type, have a blade that goes past another blade, more like a scissors. So with tender shoots with soft woods of various types, you're going to be using this type. And there are various sizes, obviously, but you're going to be using this type of bypass. With the harder woods, typically you're going to be using an anvil. The anvil tends to compress a bit as opposed to a clean cut. So you want to keep that in mind in terms of what's remaining behind when you do your trimming, pruning, what have you. So when we're looking at a one of these pruners, this is a bypass, of course, which I just introduced you to. We're going to be spending some time on them in the beginning of the year, like we are now, where we're trying to condition them, get them ready for a lovely season of growing and planting and pruning and what have you. And then we're also going to do some work at the end of the year when we're putting them away for the season. In the beginning of the year, you may need to do some work on these various movable parts. All of these parts have replacement parts that you can buy if you need to. And at the very least, you may need to do some material that you would use to lubricate the various parts. It could be something like this, a WD-40. Sometimes you can just use a mineral oil spray, a vegetable oil spray, something like Pam, for instance, where you would just get these up and moving again. You want to be cleaning these surfaces every time that you use the tool. And I think it's a good idea to think about using them if you're going from plant to plant, because you don't want to transfer any kind of material or, heaven forbid, insects or mold or fungus or what have you from one plant to another. You want to be cleaning them off frequently. Oftentimes you can do that, creatures. So dish soap that you can use with a cloth, just simply wipe them off. You can use a brush or a burlap to remove any dirt that might be on them. At the beginning of the year, and some people say that you ought to be doing this regularly. There are some people that are recommending every hour or two of use that you're sharpening your tool. And with this kind of an instrument, a bypass instrument, you can see a area here that's got a clear, sharp edge to it. These other sides do not have sharp edges, but this is a sharp edge. So on these kind of tools, you would be using this kind of a sharpener. And this kind of sharpener is used holding instrument stably. I used to call it a tool, probably not an instrument. I think I'm back in the operating room. And you want to hold it stable, and then you want to use your sharpening with strokes away from you so that you're able to sharpen and get this as good as possible. And you'll be able to see some differences as you go along in terms of getting sharp. When you do this and you get it to the point where you want it, it's important to look at the other side, because oftentimes you will crack over to the other side a burr, it's called. And you don't want to sharpen this side, but you do want to remove those burrs. They do not allow free and easy movement of your blades. So with the anvil type, this, as you can see, comes straight down on. It doesn't go by, so it's not a bypass. But it also does have a clear, sharp edge, and that edge is what you want to be cleaning. And of course, you want to be cleaning on with these anvils. Sometimes both sides you want to be sharpening, but certainly there's a main side to it. And then you want to be sure you've got those burrs off as well. We also have these little snippers, and these little snippers are more of a bypass type. They have a sharp edge, which is very easily seen, hopefully, right along here, that you would want to sharpen. And then clearly right along here that you want to sharpen. So those two edges you would sharpen, get rid of your herds, you sharpen them nice and clean and lubricated, and you're good to go. So we have a variety of variations on a theme, different sizes, different types of cutters, all of which clearly have a edge to sharpen. Here you can see each side has an edge to sharpen, and then obviously you would have an area that you would remove the burrs from. When we're talking about more deep cleaning that sometimes you have to do, sometimes the soap and water type stuff is not enough. You have to use something more extreme. For instance, if you're using these on a conifer or some kind of a snappy sort of a plant, then you may have to use a mineral spirit or some other kind of a harsher material to get that off of the instrument. For again, we'll talk about how you treat volatile spirit rags, because there is a special issue with regard to those. So now I'm going to move on to talking about the type of tool to go actually into the soil or the dirt, such as our trusty shovel here. So with the shovel at the beginning of the year, you would want to be sure that you brush it off with some kind of a wire brush. Sometimes they have wire, sometimes it's nylon bristle, but you want to be enough of a good bristle that you're going to have to get this dirt material off of the tool. Then after you've done that, then you want to be sure that you clean this very well. If you have a lot of rust, there are some things that may need to be done. Now, obviously, this would be mainly at the beginning of your year as opposed to every time you go out. If you have a lot of rust that you need to remove, there are a number of different ways to do that. One of them is to put it into a vinegar soak for several hours, even overnight. And after the vinegar soak has been done, you can use tool to remove that rust. Sometimes something else like you can use burlap to take it off. Once you've got all that done, then you're talking about this edge to sharpen. There typically on a shovel will be one sharp edge and one edge that is not sharpened. And to sharpen this, oftentimes it's easiest to do this in a vise if you have a vise. Otherwise, you're going to have it somewhere where you can hold it still so that it's stationary enough to work with it. And then you would use a file. These files come in three different types. This is it's called a bastard file. It's the coarsest of the files. You would use this primarily to get a lot of the heavy work done. And then from this, you would go to a second pass file, which is finer. And then there's another file called the first pass, which you don't usually need to use because it's fine work. It's not necessary. Something like shovel. But with this, once again, you would be stroking this away from you. That's the safest way to do this. And you would keep going until you got got it sharpened. Some of the instructors will talk about painting a little Sharpie or something on this, and then stroking this to remove the Sharpie just shows you that you've gotten some of the metal off. But however you want to do it, you want to be sure that you stroke away, get this sharpened, and then be sure that on the other side you have the burrs off. One way to keep your tools, the shovel or the rest of these tools, just to hang them up somewhere in a garage or in a tool shed or what have you. But something you can do with shovels, which works very well, is to have a bucket. Exactly the kind of bucket you would use because you want a bucket that has no holes in the bottom of it. But in the bucket, you would put sand, and then you would put some vegetable oil and get that sand moist. And then you would plunge your shovel into your vegetable oil moistened sand, and it keeps the shovel pristine during the year. You can also store it that way over the fall and winter. The other part of the shovel is the wood handle. And the wood handles need conditioning. There are shovels, of course, that are made of other materials that don't need as much work. But if you have one that's wood, like this one, then it's a good idea to get this to a point where it's going to reward you by lasting many years. So you could use a bit of sandpaper to start off. This kind of paper sandpaper. Or you can use, and I think these are better, a block. The blocks tend to be a bit more durable and they last longer. So with the sandpaper block, easy to get that off and close on it. You would go around the shovel and scrape all of this down. You would clean it off, and that you could use any of a number of materials to get it clean. And then you want to recondition it. Now, in reconditioning the handle, you can use a vegetable oil type material. You can use coconut oil, walnut oil, a variety of oils. You can also use ton oil, which is non-volatile. Or you can use linseed oil. It's the oiled linseed oil, which is the traditional way to use that. Use the oiled linseed oil. You apply it, and it will soak into the wood, and it hardens the wood. It gets rid of some of this tendency for it to splinter, and creates a nice wooden shaft. The issue with the linseed oil is that the wax are volatile and can spontaneously combust. And I think over there I have my tater. Yeah. So when you use your linseed oil, you can use an old sock. For the linseed oil, you can use a rag, what have you. If you want to be sure, when all said and done, set this out to dry. And then you want to put it into a container where it will have a minimum of oxygen. So this is a closed metal container. By doing it this way, you're going to be able to store the linseed oil rag safely. You can go on the internet and see these impressive stories of spontaneous combustion where you have linseed oil soaked rags in an open cardboard box just sitting someplace. There's no spark or anything around, and they will at times spontaneously combust, which would be, of course, a real problem. So that's the formal presentation I have about the care of garden tools, and I open it up now for questions.
So, Jory, I have a comment. And
Hi, Colette.
Hi. And this was a wonderful refresher for our practicum session we had on this. I hadn't tried any of this since I did that 2 years ago. And good reminder. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a curiosity question. And the answer may just be not taking care of them at all. But what would you say is a common mistake you hear gardeners make in regard to their tools?
I think those of us that do this for any length of time realize the importance of some of these tools. You can keep a lifetime, and you can pass them down to your kids or other people because they will last and will reward you for taking good care of them. I think commonly what happens is we're through with them, we're tired for the day, we just throw them somewhere, and then we don't do the basics to get them started. The other thing I think that we need to recognize, and it's not easy necessarily, is that they need to be cleaned each time they're used, and sometimes between plants they need to be cleaned so that you're not spreading things from one plant.
Can you show a little bit more about the sharpener? Tell a little bit more exactly what that is, please.
This sharpener, is this the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Or the other?
That one, please.
This is just made for this purpose. They are small files that are I don't know, it's hard for you to see really, but it's this in miniature. So it's got these kind of files, and I didn't go through this much, but these files either come in a single direction or a double direction, a single cut or a double cut. These are a single cut. So they're the little striations here are going just one direction, which means that you're stroking them against this one direction in order to do the sharpening.
Easy to find at a hardware store in the garden section?
Yes. Yeah. Should not have any trouble finding these. Now, all files have a lifespan so that eventually you actually will wear down these little striations. They also can be cleaned. So you can clean them, and they have special little brushes that you could get for specifically for cleaning out these little tiny tines in these. But this would be what you want to use for these handheld tools, the loppers and the pruners, as opposed to this. This would just all too much. You
Thank you.
might be able to, the finest of these, this is, as I said, the coarsest. You might be able to use the finest, but this would just be too for
Yeah.
sharpening. Water is fine.
And I have quite a bit of rust on my shovels, and you suggested soaking them overnight in vinegar, and someone was asking, is that full strength regular vinegar, not diluted?
Yes, I would use full strength household vinegar for that.
Okay.
After you do the vinegar, you can make up a kind of a slurry with baking soda. Just gently clean it off with that, and it works very, very well. There is a more industrial strength vinegar, which is quite corrosive, and I would not recommend. Just not necessary. Would not recommend using.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending and for listening. I thought that perhaps if we do this next year, we can spend more time talking about how you choose what instrument, what tool for what purpose, and that bring a lot more different tools to the table here.
And before we go, we might have one more question, I believe.
Okay, great.
Jen, I think, had her hand raised.
Did, yes. Hello, neighbors. I'm Jennifer calling from Vancouver Island. So thanks for having us. Just a real quick basic question. When you're sharpening your pruners and your loppers, do you ever disassemble them completely into the various components? And, how often would you do that? Once a year, generally?
No, usually to do that for sharpening purposes, but sometimes, as I was mentioning, some of these pieces just plain wear out of a bend or something happens to them, and you want to get a replacement kit, so you can get blades, you can get the screws and what have you, and you can replace all of this if needs to be. But typically for sharpening, everything you need to get to is readily accessible. So I would not find that necessary for your typical maintenance.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like the idea of also having a future presentation on kind of like selecting which tool for which project.
Yeah.
Seems like a good fit as well.
I'll put that on the list.
Sounds great. Well, on that note, thank you to the Jackson County Master Gardeners. Thank you, Jory.